What happens when a family's darkest secrets come to light, and a broken past becomes the foundation for hope? Follow Michael, Rachel, and Jade as they uncover decades of betrayal, fight against corruption, and build a future rooted in resilience and love. This is a powerful story about family, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds that hold us together, even in the toughest times. I always knew something was off in my family. Not just the usual stuff like money problems or the occasional argument. No, it felt deeper than that. Like there was this invisible wall between me and my mom, one I was never allowed to climb over. Growing up, I watched my little brother, Jason, get hugs, praise, and warm bedtime stories. Meanwhile, I got the cold shoulder and a checklist of chores that never seemed to end. If I did something right, it went unnoticed. If I messed up, you'd think I set the house on fire. We weren't well off by any means. My dad worked construction when he could find work, and my mom picked up shifts cleaning houses. Still, Jason always had new shoes for school and a decent lunch in his backpack. I had hand-me-downs from a cousin and peanut butter sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. One winter, our heat got shut off for 2 weeks. Jason caught a cold, and Mom cried like the world was ending. I got the flu, ran a fever so high I hallucinated, and she just told me to drink water and sleep it off. I was 9 years old when I realized something most kids never have to wonder. I don't think my mom loves me. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think she hated me either. It was more like I reminded her of something, or someone, that she couldn't stand. I'd see it in her eyes sometimes. That distant look, like I wasn't even her kid, just some problem she had to deal with. My dad, he was quiet, worked long hours, didn't talk much. He'd slip me a candy bar now and then when Mom wasn't looking. That was about the extent of our bond. He was always more of a shadow than a father figure. Things hit a turning point when I turned 16. That's when everything really started unraveling. One night, Mom and Dad had a loud argument. That wasn't new. They fought over bills, broken appliances, missed work. But this time was different. I heard my name. I was in bed, pretending to sleep, but when I heard her yell, "You should have told me the truth about him from the start." I sat straight up. Him being me. I tiptoed to the hallway and listened. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they'd hear it over their shouting. I did what I had to do, my dad snapped. You let me believe he was mine. He needed a home, Marie. I nearly passed out. I stumbled back to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, hands shaking. I wasn't hers. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I acted like nothing happened. Ate my toast, went to school, came home, and cleaned the bathroom like usual. But inside, I was falling apart. A few days later, I gathered the nerve to ask my dad when Mom wasn't home. Dad, am I adopted? He froze, toast halfway to his mouth. Why would you ask that? I shrugged. Just something I heard. He sighed, put his food down, and looked me straight in the eye. You're not adopted. But your mom, she's not your birth mother. I sat back. It felt like the air had been punched out of me. Then who is? He rubbed his face like he aged 10 years in a second. It's complicated. Try me. So he did. And what he told me blew up everything I thought I knew about my life. My biological mother was my dad's cousin, Teresa. She had me when she was only 17 and couldn't raise me. She was in and out of trouble, living out of motels, dealing with things a kid shouldn't even know about. My dad stepped in, took me in, and raised me as his own, with the help of Marie, who apparently agreed to the whole thing under one condition: never tell me the truth. So they lied. For 16 years. Lied about my mom, lied about who I really was, lied about why Marie treated me like I didn't belong. Because I didn't. I left the house that night. Didn't say where I was going. Just grabbed my hoodie, slipped out the back door, and walked. Ended up at the park, sitting under the same slide I used to cry under when I was little. Fitting, really. I stayed out till past midnight. When I got home, Dad was asleep on the couch. Marie was nowhere in sight. I went to my room and stared at the ceiling until morning. I didn't talk to either of them for days. And they didn't exactly come knocking on my door either. I guess that was the part that hurt the most. No one seemed surprised that I was breaking. But that wasn't even the worst part. That came a week later, when I found a letter hidden in the back of one of Dad's old drawers. It was addressed to me. From Teresa. I opened it, hands trembling. And what I read changed everything I thought I knew, again. The letter was written in shaky, uneven handwriting on yellowed notebook paper. Just opening it felt like I was cracking open a part of my life that had been sealed shut since birth. Dear Michael, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't even know if your dad will give it to you. But in case he does, I want you to know one thing. I didn't abandon you. I loved you more than anything in the world. I just wasn't ready. I was young, lost, and scared out of my mind. Your dad promised to take care of you. Said he'd raise you like his own. I believe he meant it. But I also know Marie. And I know she didn't want you. I never stopped thinking about you. I sent gifts, letters, cards. Most of them probably got thrown out. I'm sorry, baby. I really am. I hope one day we can meet. I hope you'll forgive me. Love. Mom, Teresa. I read it over and over again. The words burned into my brain. So it was true. Teresa had wanted me, in her own way. She just couldn't handle being a mom. And Marie had kept this from me for my entire life. Even worse, she'd kept Teresa from me. I sat there on the floor, holding that letter like it was a piece of me I never knew I was missing. I don't remember how long I stayed in my room after that. Could have been hours. Days. Everything started blending together. I went to school like a ghost. Came home, ate dinner in silence, avoided eye contact with either of them. Eventually, Dad knocked on my door. Can we talk? I didn't say anything, just stared at the wall. After a few seconds, the door creaked open and he stepped inside. I didn't want to lie to you, he said, voice low. But Teresa, she asked me to raise you. She was falling apart. I thought I was doing the right thing. You let her become a stranger to me, I said, still not looking at him. You let Marie treat me like garbage. I know. I turned to him then. And the letters? The gifts she sent? He looked down. Marie didn't want them in the house. I laughed bitterly. So she just tossed them? He didn't answer, which told me everything I needed to know. I don't remember exactly what I said after that. Probably something cruel. Something sharp. I just remember getting up, grabbing my backpack, and saying, I'm done pretending this is a family. That night, I crashed on my friend Marcus's couch. His mom asked no questions. She just handed me a blanket and said I could stay as long as I needed. The next day, I skipped school and did something I never thought I'd do. I searched for Teresa. I didn't have much to go on. No last name. No address. Just Teresa, and that she'd been in and out of trouble years ago. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I spent hours online, digging through forums, social media, anything that could give me a clue. Finally, I found a woman named Teresa G, with a mugshot from 12 years ago, and her face looked familiar. Something about the eyes. I checked her Facebook. Not much there. Just a few blurry selfies, a picture of a cat, and a post about needing help moving. But her friends list had someone named Rachel G. And Rachel had a public page. She posted a photo 2 days ago with the caption, hanging out with mom after her appointment red heart. I zoomed in on the photo. The woman in the background looked older and tired, but it was definitely her. I found her. I sent Rachel a message. Hi, I think your mom might be my birth mother. I'm not looking for trouble. I just want to talk. I didn't expect a reply, but a few hours later, my phone buzzed. OMG, are you Michael? My heart nearly stopped. We messaged for a while, and she confirmed everything. Teresa had talked about me over the years, called me her angel she let go. Rachel was her daughter from a different relationship, which technically made her my half-sister. We set up a meeting for the following weekend. It felt like the longest week of my life. When Saturday finally rolled around, I rode the bus 2 hours to a small apartment complex outside the city. My hands were sweaty the whole way. I couldn't believe this was real. I knocked on the door, and it opened before I even had time to breathe. She stood there, a little shorter than I expected, with tired eyes and a nervous smile. Her hair was streaked with gray, but her face lit up when she saw me. Michael, she asked, like she couldn't believe it either. Yeah, I said, voice cracking. Then she hugged me. Hard. Like she was trying to make up for 16 years in one single moment. We talked for hours. She told me everything. How she was on the streets when she got pregnant. How she thought she was doing the right thing by letting Dad raise me. How she'd sobbed for days after handing me over. She showed me a shoebox full of things, photos, scribbled drawings I'd made as a toddler, even one of the birthday cards she'd mailed but never got a response to. I cried. She cried. It felt like something broken inside me had started to heal. But just as I was starting to think maybe things could get better, the next twist hit harder than I could have ever imagined. Teresa had cancer. Stage 3. She hadn't told me because she didn't want to scare me off. But it was serious. She'd been going through treatments for a few months, and it wasn't looking good. And now that I'd found her, I might lose her all over again. After Teresa told me about the cancer, I sat there for what felt like forever. I didn't know what to say. I just found her, my real mom. And now she might be slipping away again. Life really had a messed up sense of timing. She tried to brush it off, said the treatments were going okay and that she was staying positive. But I could see the truth in her eyes. She was scared, and tired, and probably in more pain than she wanted to admit. That night, I stayed at her place. Rachel made us dinner, boxed mac and cheese, and some frozen meatballs, and we watched old movies in the living room like we'd known each other forever. It was strange how quickly I felt like I belonged there. Like I'd stepped into a version of life I was always supposed to have. Before bed, Teresa pulled me aside. I don't want your dad to know I told you, she said quietly. Why not? She sighed. Because he'll try to make you feel guilty. He's still trying to pretend this all never happened. I didn't say anything, but I understood. Dad had always been a man of silence. Cover it up, move on, don't talk about feelings. That's just how he operated. The next few weeks were a blur. I started spending more time at Teresa's, sometimes crashing on the couch, sometimes staying through the weekend. We'd talk late into the night, her telling me stories from her younger days. Some wild, some heartbreaking. She wasn't perfect, not even close, but at least she was honest. Meanwhile, things at Dad and Marie's house went from cold to frozen. Marie didn't say a word to me unless it was absolutely necessary. She didn't ask where I was going, didn't ask if I was coming back, and definitely didn't apologize for anything. Dad tried a few times. You don't have to keep seeing her, he said once, standing in the doorway of my room like he was scared to come in. She gave you up. She didn't throw out birthday cards. That shut him up. I think part of him knew he'd messed up, not by taking me in, but by letting Marie poison everything that followed. Eventually, I stopped going home at all. I kept my job at the gas station down the street, picked up extra shifts when I could, and paid Rachel a little rent each month just so I didn't feel like a total freeloader. And for a while, things felt okay. But life doesn't like okay for too long. One night, Teresa collapsed in the bathroom. I heard the thud from the living room and found her curled up on the tile floor, pale and shaking. We rushed her to the hospital, and that's when we got the news. The cancer had spread to her liver. They gave her 6 months, maybe less. Rachel broke down in the waiting room. I just sat there, staring at the wall, trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was about to lose the one person who had finally made me feel wanted. But the worst part? She didn't have insurance. Her treatments were already expensive, and now they were recommending hospice care. Rachel didn't have the money. I definitely didn't. And Teresa had nothing but a beat-up couch, some thrift store furniture, and a lifetime's worth of regrets. So I did something desperate. I went back home. Marie opened the door, saw me, and looked like she'd seen a ghost. "What do you want?" she asked flatly. "I need help." Dad came to the door behind her, looking confused and half asleep. I explained everything. The cancer, the timeline, the hospital bills, the fact that we were scraping together change just to buy medication. I didn't expect them to be thrilled. I didn't even expect kindness. But I thought maybe, just maybe, there was some shred of decency left in them. Marie crossed her arms. "You want us to pay for her mistakes?" "She's dying," I said, my voice shaking. "She gave me up because she thought it was best. You raised me like I was a burden. The least you can do is help her leave this world with some dignity." Dad looked down. Marie didn't even blink. "She's not our responsibility," she said. And with that, she shut the door in my face. I stood there for a long time. Then I walked away, heart numb, fists clenched, and I never went back. A few days later, I set up a fundraiser online, told Teresa's story in a post, shared everything. Her illness, our reunion, the heartbreak, the regrets. I didn't expect much. Just a few kind strangers maybe pitching in a little. But something wild happened. The post went viral. People shared it, commented, donated. In a few weeks, we'd raised enough to cover hospice care and even get Teresa a comfortable reclining bed for her tiny living room. The kindness of strangers did what my own family wouldn't. Teresa cried when I told her, said it felt like the world was giving her one last hug. We made the most of the time we had. I started recording her stories, on my phone, on paper, anywhere I could. She talked about her youth, the mistakes, the hopes she had for me. She made me promise I'd go to college, that I'd build something better than the chaos we came from. And one quiet morning, while the sun was just starting to rise, she took her last breath holding my hand. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, holding her fingers, whispering thank you. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for being brave enough to try again. After Teresa passed, the apartment felt different. Quieter. Heavier. Like the walls were holding their breath, waiting for someone to say something, but no one ever did. Rachel was a mess, understandably. She'd lost the only parent she'd ever known. I tried to be strong for her, but the truth is, I was barely holding it together myself. Grief is weird like that. You think you're doing okay, then one small thing, like a coffee cup or the smell of her old hoodie, can send you spiraling. The funeral was small. Just me, Rachel, a couple of Teresa's old friends from her AA group, and some kind-hearted strangers who had donated to the fundraiser. No flowers, no fancy music. Just a simple goodbye. As we were walking back to the car, Rachel handed me a sealed envelope. "She wanted you to have this." Inside was another letter, in her same shaky handwriting. "Michael, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry I didn't get more time with you, but I'm so grateful for the time we had. You're the best thing I ever did in this life. I want you to do something for me. Take this pain and turn it into something good. Don't let it harden you. Be better than I was. And if you're up for it, there's one more truth you deserve to know. Love always. Mom." At the bottom of the envelope, tucked in with the letter, was a folded piece of paper with an address. No explanation. No name. Just a house number and street in a part of town I didn't recognize. I showed it to Rachel. She went quiet. "You sure you want to know what that is?" "I have to." A few days later, I took the bus across town. The neighborhood was rough. Broken fences, boarded up windows, a gas station with bars on the doors. The kind of place you don't hang around after dark. I walked up to the address. It was a tired-looking house with peeling paint and a mailbox barely hanging on. I knocked. An older woman opened the door. Gray hair in a bun, cigarette dangling from her fingers. She looked at me like she already knew who I was. "You must be Teresa's boy," she said. I nodded slowly. "Who are you?" "Name's Gloria. I'm her mother." My jaw nearly hit the floor. My grandmother. She invited me in like it was the most normal thing in the world. The house smelled like old furniture and fried onions. Faded photos covered the walls, most of them black and white, some curled at the edges. "She didn't talk much about her family," I said, looking around. "She had her reasons," Gloria replied, lighting another cigarette. "Me and her, we didn't always see eye to eye. Why'd she send me here?" Gloria sat down in a recliner that looked older than I was. "Probably because you need to know where you come from, and why things turned out the way they did." She didn't sugarcoat anything. She told me Teresa had grown up rough. Her dad, my grandfather, had been a drinker and a fighter. Gloria worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. Teresa was rebellious from a young age. Got mixed up with older guys, ran away at 16, and got pregnant with me at 17. "She wanted to keep you," Gloria said. "But she didn't know how. Your father was already gone, and she was scared. Your uncle, well, your dad, offered to take you. She thought you'd be safer." So now I knew, my dad was technically my uncle. That explained a lot. "You ever think about reaching out?" I asked. Gloria gave a tired smile. "I sent her cards over the years. Never got a reply. I figured she didn't want anything to do with me. Turns out, Teresa had cut ties with her whole family after giving me up. Too much guilt. Too many bad memories. I guess I couldn't blame her. But I was glad she left me this last piece of the puzzle. It helped me understand her better. Helped me realize just how far back the pain went, and how hard she had tried to break the cycle, even if she stumbled along the way. Before I left, Gloria gave me a photo. It was of Teresa when she was young, maybe 16 or 17, holding a baby in a faded hospital blanket. Me. She kept this in her drawer till the day she left, Gloria said. Said it reminded her she wasn't all bad. I thanked her, tucked the photo into my pocket, and walked back out into the hot afternoon sun. The world felt a little heavier, but I felt a little more whole. That night, I sat at the bus stop, staring at the picture, thinking about everything I'd been through in the past year. The lies, the loss, the truth that somehow hurt and healed me at the same time. And then something hit me, an idea I couldn't shake. Maybe I could use all of this, my story, Teresa's story, the pain, the healing, to help someone else. So I started writing, not just for myself, but for others. I put together a blog, shared pieces of the story online, posted photos, letters, anything that felt real. I didn't think anyone would care, but people did. Messages started coming in from strangers who had gone through similar things. Kids who were adopted, adults who'd reconnected with lost parents, folks who had grown up in homes where they never quite felt like they belonged. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. At first, I didn't expect much. My blog was simple, just a few posts, some scanned letters, and a handful of photos. I called it The Pieces We Carry. I figured maybe a few people would stumble across it and relate. But within a month, it blew up. A writer from a mid-sized human interest site reached out, asking to do a feature. I said yes, nervously. A week after the article went live, my inbox exploded. Messages poured in. People thanked me for sharing. Some told me it helped them face their own family truths. Others just said they cried reading it. Every story felt like a thread tying me to strangers I'd never met. People trying to patch up the holes in their hearts, just like I was. I even got invited to speak at a youth shelter across town. The director said a lot of the teens there had been through similar things: foster care, estranged parents, hard starts. I was nervous, but I showed up and told them my story. They listened, really listened. And afterward, one kid came up to me and said, "I thought I was just broken, but now I think maybe I'm just healing." That hit hard. I started thinking maybe this was my thing. Maybe I could turn this mess into something meaningful. But like most good things in my life, the peace didn't last long. One night, I posted a scanned copy of Teresa's final letter, just a section about forgiveness and breaking the cycle. I blurred out the address and kept things respectful. It wasn't meant to call anyone out, but someone from my old town saw it. The next day, I got a message from Marie. "Take that post down. Now." No greeting, no warmth, just a demand. I stared at my screen for a long moment, then typed back, "Why? It's the truth." Her reply came fast. "You're making us look like monsters." I didn't even respond. Because here's the thing. I wasn't trying to paint anyone as a villain. But if the truth made someone uncomfortable, maybe it was time they sat with that discomfort. Still, part of me felt uneasy. Old habits die hard, and I'd spent most of my life trying not to upset Marie. A few days later, I found out she'd gone a step further. She called my job, told the manager I was sharing private family business online, and that it could reflect poorly on the store. He didn't fire me, but he did pull me aside. "Whatever this is, man," he said, "just keep it separate from work." That's when I realized something. Marie didn't just want me to stop writing. She wanted me to disappear. She'd spent years pretending I didn't exist in the emotional sense, and now she wanted to erase the version of me that had finally found a voice. But I wasn't going back into the shadows. Instead, I posted a follow-up. No names, no accusations, just the truth. Sometimes the people who raised you don't want the world to know how things really were. They'd rather keep it buried. But healing doesn't happen in silence. And I won't apologize for speaking my truth. It got shared more than anything else I'd written. I didn't hear from Marie again after that. Not directly, anyway. But a mutual friend messaged me and said she'd started telling people I was twisting everything for attention. I let it go, because by then, I'd learned something important. Truth doesn't need validation to be real. Meanwhile, Rachel was doing better. She started taking classes at the community college, working part-time at a cafe. We leaned on each other in ways that didn't feel forced, just natural, like siblings who had walked through the same fire and come out stronger. Then came the real curveball. I got a message from a woman named Ellen. She said she was Teresa's childhood friend. They'd lost touch after high school, but she'd seen the article about me and wanted to meet. I was hesitant, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a diner just outside the city. She was in her 50s, wore a long coat and a warm smile, and had kind eyes that looked like they'd seen a lot. "I knew your mom when she was still full of hope," she said as we sipped coffee. Before everything went sideways. She told me stories about Teresa that I'd never heard, about how she used to write poetry, how she once dreamed of opening a little bookstore by the lake, how she used to draw floor plans and notebooks during class and daydream about a life far away from everything she knew. She wasn't always broken, Ellen said quietly. The world chipped away at her until all that was left were pieces. That stuck with me. Before she left, Ellen handed me a small box. She left this with me years ago. Said to give it to you if you ever showed up. Inside were a few notebooks, worn and faded. I flipped one open, and there it was. Teresa's handwriting. Pages and pages of poems. Letters. Journal entries. Some addressed to me. Others just reflections on life, love, fear, and regret. Reading them felt like hearing her voice again. And then I found the last page of the final notebook. In all caps, underlined 3 times, she'd written, "Heal louder than they hurt you." I read it over and over again. It became my mantra, my anchor, my mission. The phrase, "heal louder than they hurt you," stuck with me like a song you can't stop humming. It was all I could think about as I kept writing, kept posting, kept answering messages from people who said things like, "I feel seen," or "I thought I was alone in this." A few months after I posted Teresa's journals, a producer from a well-known podcast reached out. One of those national shows about resilience, family, and finding your voice. She said someone had forwarded her my blog. "We think your story could really resonate with our listeners," she said. "Would you be willing to share it on air?" I was floored. I talked it over with Rachel. She was nervous about putting everything out there, but she said, "If it helps even one person not feel crazy about their past, do it." So I did. We recorded the episode over 2 long sessions. They asked about everything. My childhood, Marie, the day I found out the truth, Teresa's death. I was honest. Not cruel, not dramatic. Just raw. The episode aired a month later. And that's when everything shifted again. It went viral. Downloads in the millions. Social media lit up. People quoted Teresa's phrase, "Heal louder than they hurt you." Some even printed it on shirts. It became this strange, beautiful anthem for folks who'd been through hard things and survived. But then came the message that made my stomach drop. "Hey, I think I'm your dad." It was from a guy named Anthony. No last name, no photo. Just that sentence. Sitting there on my screen like a ticking clock. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at it for hours. My dad, or rather, my uncle, had never told me who my biological father was. Teresa had left that part out of every letter, every conversation. Maybe she was trying to protect me, or maybe she wasn't sure herself. Either way, I'd spent my life wondering who he was and why he'd vanished. Now he was here, or at least someone claiming to be. I messaged back, cautiously, "Why do you think that?" The response came fast. "I knew Teresa in high school. We were close. She told me about you once. Said she'd let her cousin raise you. When I heard your podcast, I just knew. I'm not trying to ruin your life. I'd like to talk." I didn't know what to believe. So I dug. I searched everything I could find about him. Old social media, public records, yearbook photos. Rachel helped. Eventually, we found a photo from the late 90s, taken at some high school party. There he was, standing next to Teresa, and in his arms, a baby. Me. There was no denying it. The resemblance was eerie. Same nose, same jawline, same sleepy eyes. Still, I needed more than a hunch and a photo. So I asked for a DNA test. To his credit, he agreed immediately. Paid for it, even. 2 weeks later, the results came back. 98% match. Anthony was my father. We arranged to meet at a diner not far from where Teresa used to live. I got there early, hands shaking, stomach in knots. When he walked in, I recognized him instantly. Older now, with a bit of gray in his beard and deep lines around his eyes. But still him. He sat across from me and just said, "Wow." We talked for hours. He told me he didn't know Teresa had gone through with the pregnancy until it was too late. That by the time he tracked her down, she had already handed me over to my uncle. He said he tried reaching out, but Teresa told him to stay away, said I didn't need more instability in my life. I wanted to fight it, he said, but she was scared, and I was a mess back then. I figured maybe it was for the best. I asked why he never showed up later. When things had settled, he looked down. Shame mostly, and fear. "I figured you hated me." I didn't know what to say to that. Maybe part of me did. Maybe part of me still does. But the rest of me, the part that's been craving answers, just felt tired. We agreed to keep talking. Slowly. No pressure. Just see where things go. Rachel wasn't thrilled about it. She worried I'd get hurt again. But she also said something that stuck with me. "You've already walked through fire. What's one more ember?" So I gave Anthony a chance. He wasn't perfect. He still had some rough edges, still got a little too quiet when things got emotional. But he was trying. He came to one of my speaking events at a library, sat in the back row. Afterward, he waited until everyone had cleared out, then walked up and hugged me without saying a word. And that meant more than I expected. But just as I was starting to think life might finally be stitching itself together, another shock hit me right in the chest. One night, I got a call from Rachel. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Check your email." She had forwarded me a message from someone claiming to be another sibling. A girl named Jade, 19, said she was adopted. And after listening to the podcast, she started wondering, because her birth records listed a mother named Teresa G. My blood ran cold. Could it be? I messaged her right away. She sent photos. Her eyes looked exactly like Rachel's. And she had a birthmark on her wrist, same shape, same spot as the one Teresa once said ran in the family. We talked for hours that night. She had grown up in a nice family. Good people. But she always knew something was missing. The moment she heard my story, she said it felt like a light came on. Now, our little family was growing. Me, Rachel, and Jade. 3 kids, 3 different paths, somehow all orbiting around one woman who never stopped trying, even when life pulled her in too many directions. We met Jade in person 2 weeks after that first phone call. Rachel insisted on baking a cake, chocolate, Jade's favorite, and we set up a little welcome dinner at our place. I cleaned the apartment twice over, nervous in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not because I thought Jade would judge us, but because deep down, I wanted her to feel at home, like she belonged. When she walked in, it was surreal. Same posture as Rachel. Same awkward little smile I had when I met Rachel again after all those years. She looked around, took a deep breath, and said, "This is weird, but it feels right." We all laughed. Nervously at first, then genuinely. And something about that moment, awkward and beautiful, stuck with me. It was like meeting a piece of Teresa that had been floating in the world all this time, waiting to drift back toward us. That night, we shared stories. Jade told us about her adoptive parents. Good, honest folks who gave her a safe childhood. She'd always known she was adopted but had never asked questions. "I didn't want to seem ungrateful," she said. But when she heard my podcast, it stirred something in her. The dates, the details, even Teresa's voice in a clip I'd shared. It sounded like my own thoughts, Jade said. I had to know. She brought photos of herself as a baby, and we compared them with old ones of Rachel and me. The similarities were undeniable, but it wasn't just about how we looked. It was the way she talked, the phrases she used, the way she cradled her mug when she got nervous. It all felt so familiar. We didn't need a DNA test. We already knew. After dinner, Rachel pulled out the journals. We let Jade read Teresa's words, see her handwriting, her hope, her heartbreak. Jade cried. We all did. That night, she stayed over, fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in an old blanket Teresa had once crocheted. I looked over at her, and for the first time, the word sister felt whole. The three of us started spending more time together. We'd meet up every Sunday, sometimes for brunch, sometimes just to walk through the park and talk about nothing. We were healing, slowly, together. But then came the phone call that threatened to crack everything wide open again. It was from a documentary producer. A major network had heard the podcast and wanted to do a full-length feature on our story. Interviews, home videos, even a reenactment segment. They said it could reach millions more, give Teresa the spotlight she never had, and maybe, just maybe, help other families heal. I was honored. Nervous, but honored. Rachel was hesitant. "We've already shared so much," she said. "What if it brings out people from the past we're not ready to deal with?" Jade was excited. "If Teresa's story can help someone else the way it helped me, I'm in." So we sat down and really talked it out. I told them the truth. I was scared, not of the attention, but of losing the quiet, sacred space we'd created, of the story becoming someone else's property, of Teresa being reduced to soundbites and headlines. But in the end, we agreed. If we told it ourselves, on our terms, it could be powerful. Not a tabloid tragedy, but a story of resilience, reconnection, and the woman who made it all possible. We signed on. The crew started filming that fall. They interviewed all of us, me, Rachel, Jade, even Anthony. We visited the old neighborhood, the diner where I first met my dad, and the little library where Teresa used to take me when I was a kid. It was emotional, raw, but also healing. One day during filming, the director pulled me aside. "I hope you realize how rare this is," she said. "Most people don't come back from a story like this, let alone build something this strong out of it." I didn't have the words to answer. I just nodded. But with the cameras came something else, attention. Some of it was beautiful. People reaching out with their own stories, thanking us for being brave. But then, one morning, I opened my inbox to find an email that knocked the wind out of me. From MaryEgg52 at Marie. I hadn't heard from her in years. The subject line read, "You're lying." My hands trembled as I opened it. "I don't know what story you think you're telling, but you need to stop dragging our family through the mud. Teresa wasn't perfect, but she wasn't some saint either. And don't forget, she left you too." I sat there in silence for a long time. Of course she'd show up now, just when things were finally feeling whole. Rachel saw the look on my face and read the email over my shoulder. "You don't owe her anything," she said. Not one reply. But part of me wanted to. Not to fight. Not to argue. But to remind her that this story wasn't about revenge. It was about light. About healing. About truth. Still, I didn't write back. I just archived the message and closed the laptop. Some things don't need a response. Later that week, the producer told us the documentary would air in January. A primetime slot. National coverage. We had no idea what would come next. But standing there with Rachel and Jade, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Not fear. Not sadness. But peace. And maybe, just maybe, hope. The documentary aired on a Sunday night in January. We watched it from my living room. Me, Rachel, Jade, and even Anthony, who brought snacks like it was game day. The crew had done a beautiful job. They captured Teresa's warmth, her strength, her heartbreak, and somehow, the quiet bravery that wove its way through all of us. When it ended, we sat in silence for a minute. Then Jade whispered. She would have been proud. I couldn't even answer. I just nodded, blinking back the tears. That night, my inbox filled up with messages. Hundreds of people shared their own stories of abandonment, resilience, and lost family members. Some wrote just to say thank you. Others told me they'd started looking for loved ones they'd given up on. It was overwhelming, in the best way. But then, a few days later, something landed in my inbox that made my chest tighten all over again. Subject, I knew your mother. It was from someone named Evelyn Hart. I clicked on it, heart pounding. "Hi, Michael. I'm not sure if this will reach you, but I just watched the documentary. I knew your mother years ago. We worked together at a women's shelter in Chicago. There's something I've been holding on to for a long time. I didn't know if I'd ever get the chance to say this, but I think you need to hear it now." My hands started to shake. I called Rachel and read it out loud. Jade leaned in and asked the question we were all thinking. What is she talking about? I messaged Evelyn back, asking if we could talk. She replied within the hour, saying she was free for a video call the next day. When the call started, I saw an older woman with kind eyes and a weathered face. Her background was simple: a bookshelf, a houseplant, and a framed photo of a group of women smiling. Thank you for taking the time, she said softly. I wasn't sure if I should speak up, but after seeing the pain you've all carried, I just couldn't stay quiet. Evelyn explained that she'd met Teresa in the early 90s. After Teresa had left our father, she spent time working at a shelter under a different name. She'd gone by Tess then. Evelyn said she was one of the strongest women she'd ever met. Quiet, but determined. Always helping others before herself. She used to talk about her kids all the time, Evelyn said. But she never said much about where they were. Just that she missed you. Then Evelyn leaned forward and lowered her voice. She left something with me, Michael. A letter. She said if anything ever happened to her and someone came looking, I was supposed to pass it on. My heart stopped. A letter? Rachel and I exchanged a look. Neither of us said a word. We just waited. Evelyn held up an old, yellowed envelope with my full name written in careful cursive. I never knew how to find you, she said. But after watching your story, I'm sure it's meant for you. She mailed it the next day. When it arrived, I couldn't bring myself to open it right away. It sat on my nightstand for 2 days. I just stared at it, wondering what kind of truth it might hold. I think I was afraid that whatever was inside would change everything we'd finally made peace with. But eventually, I sat down at the kitchen table, lit a candle, and opened it. The letter was 5 pages long. It started with, "My sweet boy, if you're reading this, then I didn't make it back to you. I won't share every word, but here's what matters." She never wanted to leave us. But she'd been warned, by a social worker, by her lawyer, by her own instincts, that our father was dangerous. Not just to her, but to us. She fled because she feared he'd hurt us more if she stayed, and tried to fight for custody. She thought disappearing would protect us. She said she'd planned to come back when it was safe. But she was sick for a long time, and by the time she felt strong enough, she didn't know how to find us. Her health was getting worse, and she didn't want to saddle us with the pain of watching her fade. "I didn't want your last memory of me to be the hospital bed," she wrote. "I wanted you to remember me strong." The last paragraph broke me. "I hope you've grown into the kind of man who leads with kindness. I hope you found your way back to your sister. I hope one day you'll forgive me, not because I deserve it, but because I love you enough to ask." I sat there for hours. Eventually, I walked to Rachel's room and knocked. She didn't say anything, just opened the door and pulled me into a hug. We didn't need words. That letter answered a question I'd carried for over 2 decades. It didn't erase the past, but it brought clarity. And with that clarity came something I hadn't felt in years. Forgiveness. That weekend, we all sat down, Rachel, Jade, Anthony, and I, and read the letter together. We cried. We laughed. And we decided something right then and there. We were going to build something in Teresa's name. A small foundation. Something that would help single parents, women in crisis, and kids caught in the cracks of the system. We didn't know the first thing about starting a nonprofit, but we were determined to figure it out. And we had one guiding principle, printed on every letterhead, every flyer, and every donation card. Lead with kindness. Starting a nonprofit turned out to be way harder than we expected. We had the heart, sure, but the paperwork, the licensing, the budgeting, that was a whole other world. Thankfully, Jade was a powerhouse. She'd always been good with logistics, and she treated the project like it was her full-time job, because, well, it kind of became that. We called it the Tess Foundation, in honor of the name Teresa used during those years she was rebuilding her life. It felt right, like we were carrying forward her spirit, strong, quiet, but deeply committed to helping others. Our goal was simple: give emergency support to single parents escaping dangerous situations, especially mothers who felt trapped and powerless. We started small. A GoFundMe, a website, some local press thanks to the documentary. And donations came in. Not a lot, but enough to get our first project going. A safe apartment, rent-free for 6 months, fully furnished, for someone starting over. That apartment was ready by summer. The day we gave the keys to the first tenant, a young woman named Carla who'd fled with her 2 boys. We cried just as much as she did. It felt like we were finally turning the pain we grew up with into something meaningful. Like we were breaking the cycle. But, as always, the past wasn't done with us. One afternoon, I came home and found Rachel pacing in the kitchen. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Before I could ask, she handed me her phone. It was an email from someone named Grace_W_1989. "Rachel, you don't know me, but I know who you are. I've been carrying something for a long time, and it's time you knew the truth. Please, I'm not trying to stir up trouble. I just want to talk. 1 hour. That's all I ask." There was a phone number and a location, a diner 2 towns over. "What do you think?" Rachel asked, her voice tight. "I think it's weird," I said. "Could be a scam. Or worse." But Rachel shook her head. "Grace was our caseworker when we were kids. I remember the name. I remember her face. And I think she might have known more than she let on back then." We debated for hours, but Rachel was set on going. "Whatever she says, I need to hear it," she said. "If I don't go, I'll always wonder." So, the next day, we went together. The diner was nearly empty. A woman sat alone in a corner booth, mid-60s maybe, with silver hair tied back in a braid and tired eyes that lit up when she saw us. "Rachel," she said softly. "You look so much like her." Rachel sat down across from her. I stayed quiet beside her, arms crossed, just in case. Grace got straight to the point. "I was assigned to your case when you were 3, she said. "You and your brother were removed from your mother's custody after an anonymous tip claimed she was unstable and neglecting you." My heart started to race. Rachel leaned forward. "But she wasn't," Rachel said. "She was protecting us. We know that now." Grace nodded. "I know. But at the time, I didn't." She reached into her bag and pulled out an old, worn folder. "After the documentary aired, I went back through my old records. Something's been bothering me for years, something I was too scared to question at the time. But I think your father bribed someone in our department. Your file had pages missing. Phone records were erased. And I found this." She slid a photocopy across the table. It was a letter, typed, not handwritten, dated 3 months before Teresa lost custody. It accused her of drug use, child abandonment, and mental instability. It was signed, "A Concerned Neighbor." Rachel's eyes scanned it quickly. Then she froze. This isn't a neighbor," she whispered. "This is word for word what Dad used to say when he was mad. I remember him yelling some of these exact things." Grace nodded grimly. "I think your father wrote it himself. Or dictated it to someone. Either way, it was used as justification to open an investigation and remove you both." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "All those years," Rachel whispered. "All those years we thought she gave us up, and it was him. He rigged the system." Grace reached out, gently touching Rachel's hand. "I'm so sorry. I should have pushed harder. I should have seen it. But I was young, overworked, and scared of rocking the boat." Rachel didn't say anything for a long time. Eventually, she just nodded. "Thank you for telling me," she said quietly. We walked out of the diner without another word. Rachel didn't speak for most of the drive home. She just stared out the window, hands clenched tight in her lap. That night, she sat on the porch for hours. When I finally joined her, she turned to me and said, "He took everything. Mom, our home, our childhood. He stole it all." I didn't know what to say, so I just sat with her. Sometimes, silence is the only thing strong enough to hold the weight of a broken past. After that meeting with Grace, Rachel changed. She wasn't angry, not in the way I expected. She was focused, sharper, like something inside her had finally clicked into place. For days, she barely spoke. She just worked. She printed out everything Grace gave her. She contacted journalists. She talked to a lawyer. And then one night, over dinner, she made her announcement. "I'm going public," she said. Jade set down her fork, blinking. "You mean with your story?" Rachel nodded. "With everything. What he did. What the system let him do. I'm not hiding anymore." I hesitated. "You sure that's a good idea? I mean, you know what this town is like. There are still people who think Dad walks on water." Rachel looked at me, dead serious. "I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for the people still stuck in it." And she did. She sat down with a local reporter from the Daily Ledger, the same paper that ran the original glowing profile of our father 15 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. This time, the story was different. The headline read, "He stole my childhood. One woman's fight to uncover the truth behind her family's fall." It hit like a lightning bolt. The article was detailed, emotional. It laid out everything. How Teresa lost custody, the missing records, the bribery suspicion, the fake letter. It even quoted Grace, who finally came forward on the record after decades of silence. The town lit up. Some people were outraged, for us. Others were outraged at us. We got letters of support, flowers on our porch, and hate mail taped to our mailbox. "Your mother was crazy. You're just after attention. You want to destroy a good man's name." Rachel kept her head up, but I knew it got to her. What hurt the most, though, was what came from inside our own family. Aunt Lila, Dad's sister, called us. "I read the article," she said flatly. "And I hope you're happy dragging your father's name through the dirt. Whatever happened, he was still your dad." Rachel didn't flinch. "He was a monster." Lila scoffed. "He was strict. That's not the same." Rachel hung up without another word. Not long after, the foundation's website was hit with spam. Hundreds of junk messages, all within an hour. We had to take the donation page offline until we could rebuild. It felt like someone, maybe multiple someones, wanted to silence us. But we kept going. Then, 3 weeks later, something happened we didn't expect. A woman named Denise showed up at the office unannounced. She was in her 50s, quiet, wearing an old denim jacket and sunglasses. "I knew your mom," she said. "Back when we both worked at the factory." Rachel and I exchanged a glance, then invited her to sit. Denise took a breath. "I was there the night she got the call from CPS. She was working overtime. She dropped her phone when they said you and your brother were being taken." Her hands trembled. "She screamed," Denise whispered. "Right there on the line. She screamed and cried and tried to leave, but the shift manager made her stay to finish the quota. Said she couldn't leave her post without coverage." I felt something twist inside me. Denise wiped her eyes. I was the one who finally took her place so she could run out. I followed her to the parking lot. I'll never forget her face. She looked like someone had ripped her heart out. Rachel's voice shook. "Why didn't you come forward back then?" Denise looked down. "I was scared. Your dad, he had friends in high places. Everyone knew it. And when your mom disappeared, I figured it was over." She handed us an envelope. I kept this, in case I ever had the courage. Inside was a statement, handwritten and dated, describing exactly what Denise just told us. She'd written it that very night, unsure where to send it. Rachel clutched the paper like it was gold. We added Denise's testimony to the file and gave it to our lawyer. By now, momentum was building. The Daily Ledger ran a follow-up. A podcast picked up the story. An independent filmmaker reached out to us about making a short doc for a human rights film festival. But it wasn't all cameras and applause. One night, someone threw a brick through the window of our foundation's office. No note, no witnesses, just shattered glass and a mess to clean up. The police said they'd investigate, but we didn't expect much. We moved our meetings online for a while after that. For safety, Jade started carrying pepper spray. I bought a security camera. Rachel? She didn't flinch. She doubled down. This just proves how badly the truth needs to come out, she said. And it did. 6 months after the first article, a local election came around. One of the candidates running for mayor was the son of our father's old business partner. Rachel wrote a public letter urging voters to reconsider. It went viral. People started paying attention, not just to our story, but to the wider issue. How easily power can hide cruelty, how systems fail the vulnerable, and how the past never stays buried forever. Our foundation tripled in donations. We opened 2 more safe apartments. Carla, the first woman we helped, came back to volunteer full-time. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed. And Rachel, she was becoming a force of nature. Things had been moving fast. The foundation was growing, the story was spreading, and Rachel was becoming a local hero in the fight for justice. But sometimes, just when you think you're finally safe, the past finds a way to knock at the door. It happened on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I was at the office, finishing emails, when the doorbell rang. Rachel wasn't there yet. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door. Standing there was a woman I didn't recognize, early 30s, sharp eyes that flickered between fear and something else, maybe relief. "Can I help you?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "I hope so. My name's Maya. I have something to tell Rachel." I hesitated, but let her in. Maya looked nervous, like she'd rehearsed what she wanted to say 100 times. When Rachel arrived, I introduced them. Maya took a deep breath and started talking. "I was a kid back when all this was happening, the chaos with your family, your dad, the custody stuff." Rachel nodded slowly. "Go on." "I was friends with someone, your father's old business partner's daughter. We were close. And I heard things no kid should ever hear." Maya's voice dropped. I think your father's partner wasn't just a business partner. There was something darker going on. Something they wanted to hide." I felt my heart rate speed up. Maya pulled out a worn folder. Inside were photos, text messages, and notes. "Here," she said. "This is what I've collected over the years. People who were hurt, threatened, secret meetings, payments, bribes." Rachel scanned the documents with a sinking feeling. "We always suspected Dad's side was shady," she said quietly. "But this is on another level." Maya nodded. "There's more. Your mother knew. Teresa warned me once. She said if anything ever happened to her, I should look for the truth." My mind was racing. If what Maya said was true, then the entire system was rotten from the inside out. Our family's pain wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was part of something bigger. Rachel stood up, voice steady but fierce. "We need to get this out there. People need to know." Maya looked relieved. "Thank you. I was scared to come forward. But seeing what you've done gave me hope." We spent hours going through the evidence, deciding what to share, who to trust. The foundation's mission suddenly felt heavier, more urgent. That night, Rachel called a meeting with our legal team and the documentary crew. "We're going to blow this wide open," she said. I felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. Because sometimes, telling your truth isn't enough. Sometimes, you have to fight to make sure it's heard. After Maya's visit, everything changed. We went from feeling hopeful to feeling hunted. The evidence she brought wasn't just shocking, it was explosive. It painted a picture of corruption that reached far beyond our family, touching local officials, business leaders, even law enforcement. Rachel was ready to take it public, but the threats started almost immediately. First, it was subtle, anonymous texts with creepy warnings. "Stop digging. Some things are better left buried." Then, someone keyed my car, leaving a long scratch down the driver's side. The foundation's website got hacked again, this time with threatening messages. One night, someone threw a rock through the office window. I called the police every time, but nothing ever came of it. Rachel didn't back down. She doubled down. In fact, she organized a town hall meeting. We invited victims, survivors, and community leaders to come forward. The room was packed, standing room only. People shared stories of betrayal, lost opportunities, and years of silence. It was raw and powerful, but not everyone was happy. The next day, an op-ed appeared in the Daily Ledger, accusing Rachel and me of stirring division and dragging our father's name through the mud. The author? The mayor's campaign manager, someone tied directly to our father's old business partner. Rachel read it out loud to me, voice tight but unbroken. "We expected this," she said. "They want to silence us. But we're louder." Jade stepped up, organizing a fundraiser to support the foundation's legal fees and security upgrades. Meanwhile, Anthony started working with a private investigator, digging deeper into the connections between our father's partner and local officials. The investigation uncovered bribes, falsified documents, and even intimidation tactics aimed at witnesses. It was like peeling back layers of a poisonous onion. Every time we thought we'd found the bottom, there was more rot. But the community started to rally. Local news stations picked up the story. Volunteers showed up at our events. Donations poured in, not just money, but supplies, offers for pro bono legal work, even security consultations. It was overwhelming, but also energizing. One evening, after a long day of interviews, Rachel sat down next to me and said, "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone who's been silenced." I nodded, and for the first time, I realized how far we'd come. From 2 kids lost in the system to a family leading a movement. But the fight was far from over. One late night, the private investigator called. "He's on the move," he said. "Your father's old partner is trying to cover his tracks, destroying evidence, intimidating witnesses." I swallowed hard. Rachel looked at me, eyes blazing. "Then we'll be right behind him." The tension in town was thicker than ever. Every day felt like walking on a wire stretched over a canyon. But just when it seemed like the darkness was closing in, something unexpected happened. A former insider came forward. Her name was Linda. She'd worked for years as a secretary in the office of our father's old business partner. She'd seen things, heard conversations, watched bribes get handed off, and secrets buried deep. At first, no one believed her. After all, she was just a secretary, and powerful people had spent years discrediting anyone who dared speak out. But Linda had proof. Documents, emails, recordings. She met with our lawyer and handed over a trove of evidence that confirmed everything Maya had said, and more. Linda's testimony opened a floodgate. People who had been silent for years started calling us. Former employees, neighbors. Even a retired judge came forward with his own story of being pressured to look the other way. The local newspaper ran a front-page story headlined, "Whistleblower breaks decades of silence and corruption scandal." It was the turning point we needed. But betrayal was never far behind. One night, after a foundation event, I got a call from Jade. "They're after Rachel," she whispered. Rachel had received an anonymous tip that someone was following her. We didn't know who or why, but the message was clear. They wanted to scare her off. We hired a security detail for her and increased the office's protection. But the fear crept in. At a staff meeting, Rachel broke down for the first time. "This isn't just about our family anymore," she said. "It's about justice, but it's also about survival." The pressure was real. Then, out of nowhere, a lawyer from a major city called. He represented a powerful national organization interested in taking on our case pro bono. "We've been watching your story," he said. "We want to help you bring these people down." That call changed everything. With this new ally, our legal team grew stronger. We started filing suits, subpoenas, and investigations into local officials and businesses tied to the corruption. The fight was exhausting, but we were no longer alone. Rachel, Jade, Anthony, Maya, Linda, and I became a tight-knit team, bound by pain, truth, and a fierce determination. Even in the darkest moments, we found strength in each other. And just when I thought we might finally see justice, a shock rocked us all. Rachel got a letter from her father. Not just a letter, an admission. He claimed he'd been coerced into silence, that he'd been trapped in the same system we were fighting. He begged for forgiveness. The question was, could we give it? The letter from Dad hit me like a punch to the gut. After everything, every fight, every betrayal, every shattered piece of our past, he finally reached out. His handwriting was shaky, the paper worn like he'd read it 1,000 times before sending. He claimed he'd been trapped, blackmailed, and threatened into silence by those same people Rachel and I were fighting. He said he never wanted to hurt us, never wanted to lose us. He begged for forgiveness. I read the letter over and over, searching for the truth buried between the lines. Rachel and I sat together late that night, the letter between us like a fragile, dangerous thing. She looked at me, eyes heavy. "Do you think he means it?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe it's the real him. Maybe it's just fear." Jade joined us, and the 3 of us talked for hours. Forgiveness wasn't simple. It wasn't forgetting. It was something harder. Rachel finally said, "I'm not sure we owe him anything. But maybe we owe ourselves peace." We decided to write back, not to reopen wounds, but to set boundaries. We told him we wanted the past to stay in the past, but that our fight was far from over. That healing was our focus now. That decision felt like closing a door, but it also felt like stepping into the light. The foundation kept growing. The lawsuits moved forward, and our community rallied like never before. One day, the judge announced a hearing date for the biggest case against the corrupt officials. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, survivors, volunteers from the foundation. Rachel spoke first. Her voice was steady, filled with a strength born from pain and perseverance. "This fight is for every child who never had a voice, for every parent who was silenced, for every family torn apart by lies and greed." The evidence was overwhelming. The officials were forced to step down. Investigations expanded statewide. Justice, slow and imperfect, finally felt within reach. After the hearing, we stood outside the courthouse, surrounded by friends and strangers who'd become family. Rachel hugged me tight. "We did it," she whispered. But I knew the real victory wasn't just the courtroom win. It was the journey we'd taken together, from broken kids to a family unbreakable, from silence to a voice that couldn't be ignored, from pain to purpose. And as the sun set that day, casting long shadows behind us, I realized something. We weren't victims anymore. We were survivors. We were warriors. We were home. With the courtroom battles behind us, a new chapter began, not just for us, but for everyone touched by our story. The Test Foundation grew beyond what any of us imagined. We started new programs, scholarships for kids caught in the system, counseling for survivors, and workshops teaching families how to protect themselves from abuse and neglect. Rachel became a speaker, traveling to schools and community centers, sharing our story to inspire change. Jade managed operations, making sure every dollar was used wisely. Anthony helped with outreach, connecting us to people who needed help. And me? I kept telling the story, the podcast, the videos, the articles, because the fight wasn't over until every voice was heard. One afternoon, we held an event at a local community center. Families, kids, volunteers, and supporters packed the room. It was warm, noisy, full of hope. A little girl tugged at my sleeve. "Are you Michael?" she asked shyly. I smiled. "I want to be brave like your family," she said. That hit me harder than anything else. Because our fight wasn't just about the past. It was about the future. The same future Teresa dreamed of for us. We never forgot her. Every step forward was a tribute to her courage and love. And every time we helped someone heal, we felt her with us. Sometimes, life throws you into the deepest darkness imaginable. But the light you find inside, that's what makes you whole. That's what makes you family.